we think is the best one. So what do you think is the best argument, in your opinion, for theism?
For me, it's not an argument, but I respect theists who make the deistic argument. God is not involved in this day-to-day life, but he has a bigger plan, because that helps them evade a lot of baggage that comes with this, especially Abrahamic religion, because now you can't tie them to a book, you can't tie them to a certain moral system. So it's hard to argue with them, but I consider them to have a bigger sense of morality, where I would consider that a better argument than someone who is trying to beat down or ram down on the, like, maybe say the issue of slavery, or the issue of the issue of women, the meaning of women in the Bible. So for me, I think that's a better argument when you position yourself as a deist rather than let's say a Christian or a Muslim or a whatever.
I mean, it's harder to marshal arguments against a God who barely exists. So, yeah. So that's fair. Yeah.
For me, I think this was one of the hardest questions, because I thought about it. It's a question you actually asked before this, and I'm still like, which argument? But I think as being raised as a Jehovah's Witness, we were told that, there is a design in everything. So you look at how, like, let's say the physical constants of the universe, you look at them, if they're just different by any variation, so life would not be possible, which again I'd say is false, because we haven't tested all the possible combinations that are there. But I still feel like that kind of holds somebody to think that maybe there is something that created or placed us here where we are, despite of what it may be or who he may be. But that's one of the arguments that I find. I'd say as a theist, it was one of my most compelling arguments. But now that I found out that, I mean, there is so much in this universe that we can't even say. Life may have proliferated in so many places that we cannot even know. But when I was a theist, I'd say that was one of my strongest arguments. But now I have the counter argument.
Yeah, the teleological argument that, the fine-tuning argument is a subset of, it feels like it just makes intuitive sense, because we look around and things seem super well ordered, and we think, like, if things were different, we couldn't exist, which is true. But, like, we are not the only way life can exist. Like, I think my favorite response to this was Sean Carroll was in a debate with William Lane Craig, who made this similar argument. And Sean Carroll said, I'll accept that the universe is fine-tuned for life when someone can tell me what conditions life can arise in. Because we don't know. We've got a sample size. We have one planet, and that's all we know, right? So that's not enough for us to say, like, what are the bounding conditions of life? Like, if things were different, life as we know it couldn't exist, but that doesn't mean no life could exist.
It's so fun because it's used actually to convince me. I look back and feel quote unquote stupid that I used to actually make this argument to my friends. And actually, I used to use the example of Jupiter, the way the gravity protects us against the asteroids. And I was like, who placed it there? I just, imagine how many asteroids would have hit the Earth. But then my friend who is agnostic told me, but why did God create the asteroids in the first place? And I was really dumbfounded.
DM points out the puddle analogy. The view from as a puddle, the hole I'm in clearly fits me perfectly. So it must have been designed, right? That's Douglas Adams articulated that. I think the universal fine-tuning argument has some merit. The planet like Earth fine-tuning has no merit whatsoever, because like you said, Jupiter is the right distance. Well, if Jupiter wasn't the right distance and we did get bombarded by asteroids, then Earth just wouldn't have life, and life would evolve somewhere else, and then they'd be on that other planet saying how amazing it was, Yeah, so exactly. like wherever life shows up, it's going to show up where life can show up, right? That's not very surprising.
And I think there was this other analogy, same to the paddle argument, but you can think of a plant that grows on a crack along the roadside and a crack on the side of the road. It's not that this plant was designed to stay there, but somehow the seed found itself there and it germinated. And it could say, look, if I was at the middle of the road, cars would have trampled on me. If I was just away from the road, I wouldn't have gotten water. But when you look at it, it's just that it happened to be there. Nobody planted it there, but it just happened to be there. And conditions seem perfect for it at that time that it exists.
Yeah, I think for the cosmological version of fine tuning, when people say like they'll often say things like the odds are astronomical, like because the physical constants could have had any value, but they had this one, and I'm like, well, how do you know they could have had any value? Like, we don't know. That maybe they can only have this value. We have no idea. Nobody knows, right? So like I always challenge them, how are you assessing this probability? Because as far as I can tell, you have a sample size of 1, and that's not very good for assessing probabilities. Yeah, I agree that the teleological argument is one of the more kind of superficially compelling. And on a universal level, I think it has a little bit of merit, but the Earth version doesn't have any merit at all. For me, probably the most compelling is it would probably be a toss-up between consciousness and the cosmological argument, like the source of the universe. Because for the cosmological argument, I mean, at the end, we don't know what caused the universe. That's just an unknown. Like, we understand up to the Big Bang, but we don't know what happened before that, or if even before that is a sensible concept, right? And so, like, well, that's a hole that you can plug God into, and I can't demonstrate that you're wrong. So, like, in that sense, it I can't refute it, basically, which is why I can recognize it has some strength. But on the other hand, like, it seems to be leaning on I don't know, therefore God, or like I don't know, therefore I do know, and it's God, right?
Yeah. But on the consciousness, what would be the argument?
So the argument is kind of similar in that we have consciousness exists, and there's no explanation. Usually the argument goes something like there's no consciousness isn't possible for physical matter, or like consciousness can't be explained in a material universe, therefore there must be a supernatural layer to the universe, or something like that. Basically, since the hard problem of consciousness, a material explanation for consciousness is not yet available to us, it must not exist, and therefore souls or whatever.
Yeah, I accept the problem of consciousness is quite difficult, but I have a problem with the God of the gap, where everything we don't know, you keep inserting the God, because that makes God temporal. There was a time God was the lightning and the other. So the more we discover, the more he resides into these small pockets. So I'm not saying we will probably be able to explain consciousness, but we should develop the sense of saying, or the courage of saying we don't know for what we don't know until it's demonstrated.
Yeah, I think I don't know is a phrase that's said too rarely in the world. You should, if you don't know, then that's okay. It's fine. It's okay to not know things. For me, even though I think the hard problem of consciousness, of course, hasn't been solved, and we're not going to solve it here. To the extent that we have any evidence, the only consciousness we experience is our own, right? But we can see other human beings and they appear to be conscious, so we can probably accept that they have conscious experiences too. But all of the conscious experiences that we see or infer are tied to brains. Only things with brains appear to have a conscious experience. And if you mess with the brain, you mess with the consciousness. If I take chemicals, if I take caffeine, if I take whatever, it changes my conscious experience. Sure seems like the consciousness is having to do with the bag of meat in my head. I mean, I can't say that for sure, but
Yeah, but my problem has always been to conceptualize it, like to define it. I can make all those arguments, but to try and understand that, for me, and this is quite antidotal for me, I think it has something to do with self-awareness, like the fact that I know me is me. Maybe that's how I look at consciousness. I've tried to watch a lot of Sam Harris and other people on this area, but um, I don't accept how it can be an argument for God, but I am still baffled. I'm still also in the gray area.
Well,
And I think the best answer is just saying when it comes to that, because we don't know what it is. And the fact that, let's say, even consciousness itself is something that you can say you can't put a pin on it. Let's say if right now I were to undergo a lobotomy, then I would have a problem controlling my urges. And that shows that you have changed who I am and how I experience consciousness in a way. So I think the best answer is just as we said, when we don't know, we just admit we don't know and move on forward.
I mean, on the one hand, one virtue of the God hypothesis is it has a ready answer. There's an answer to all these questions. Why do you have consciousness? Well, because of your soul. Of course, you can ask, well, how does that work? Like, how does the soul work? And don't worry about it. It's God did it or whatever.
It's
so
explained in heaven,
yeah. Right. And hell is made for people asking such questions. Okay. Did everybody get their best argument in? I kind of lost track.
Oh yeah. I think I did with the DS one.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've been going for about an hour and 15 minutes. So I think we probably start wrapping up. But before we go, I want to give you both a chance to say any parting words to the audience and kind of tell everybody where they can find you and how they can support your efforts to fight the good fight in Kenya.
I can go first. So thank you again. This is it always feels much better when you're from Kenya, where everything around you is religious. It's a relief to be with secular community even for an hour.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like a moment to breathe fresh air. Yeah, and I'm glad. So in Kenya we're trying, but how do I put it? I think we're in progress. I like to be much more optimistic. We're doing much more progress. What I would just like to say is that personally, I have a channel, Secular Kenya. I think it's on the description. You can support me there. You follow me on all the socials at Secular Kenya. We have an association called SAS Kenya. We also Skeptics and Atheists Society of Kenya. We're doing some good jobs. We're having debates with the college students and university students, because for them, I think the level of skepticism is that's something I like about the young people, especially in this country. It's the level of skepticism is quite high. I think because of they're much more exposed than the elder people through internet, through TikTok, whatever. They have learned to question everything. They don't have this attitude that some ideas are beyond questioning. So they're asking some questions which are, of course, would be uncomfortable to the mainstream religious people. So that's one of the activities we're doing. We normally have a monthly hangout. We normally have a monthly video shoot. We have a channel called Atheist Hangout. I would propose that is now as an association. We have a channel called Atheist Hangout, which is where we post all our monthly video shoot. Yeah, and I hope we can win this thing. I am my final thing is the way I measure the progress is we had a census in 2019, and we had about 1 million people who indicated that they are non-religious. They are irreligious in the country. We are about 50 million in the country, so it was 1 million out of 50 million. And this is a big rise, though that we had a problem with the way the census was conducted, because again, everything, it tells you how religious powerful it is. It disseminates down to the processes of even basic things like carrying out a census, where the census officers were not asking someone what religion are you, or are you religious? They would presume, you come from this region, you're from quote unquote Texas, you must be a Christian, and they autofill that form online. So that one really worked against us. But
you're a Christian, right? I'll just go ahead and bubble it in.
Actually, in most cases, they did not even ask. They would just ask your name and some basic information. They would autofill. They would assume this village, everybody is a Christian, or this village, everybody is a Muslim. So, and despite that, we managed to get 1 million people who actually came out to confess that they don't associate with the religion, which I think is a good progress. So my measure is that when we do the next census in 2029, probably we can get to a figure of 20%. That's what we are working with. So that will involve a lot of activities, what we're doing, especially with young people, going through the universities, having these debates online. Yeah, so basically, yeah, that's it. What we just want is to have our presence online, having shows like this, getting the equipment to go live from different parts of the country. I think that's what we can do to achieve this. But that's our target: 20%, 25% by 2029, and I think it's achievable. It's not we are not being over optimistic.
Yeah, I think that's definitely achievable. Adiel, where can people find you?
So my channel is Adiel Kilonzi, though I'll admit I've been idle a bit on that side. But on the plus side, we've been doing the Atheist Hangout, that is with the Skeptic and Atheist Society of Kenya. So this is actually where we hang out as a group and have a discussion as a group. So you can find some of the videos that I'm also in there and the general group, and you can see the formats that we've been doing those videos in. So I'd also urge guys, other than also looking at my channel, you can also look at the Skeptic and Atheist Society of Kenya and the Atheist Hangout that we usually have. And I'd say that when Morris talks about the census, there was also another problem. You see, when these guys come, they are talking to people who also, maybe you're there with your parents, and you'll find that some people will not admit that they are atheists or skeptics, because I know some Jehovah's Witnesses who are atheists or agnostics, but they are what we call physically in and mentally out, such that they already know their stance, but because they don't want to lose their parents and their families, they will not come out and say the truth about where they are. And then the other bias was also the guys taking the census should also try and not be biased. Because I remember, like, when I told the guy I'm non-religious, and there was this elderly lady, it was an elderly lady and a young man. And the elderly lady was like, "My child, you mean you don't believe in God? How?" so it was so funny. Like, her reaction, she was like, "What do you mean you don't believe in God?" Now she wants to give me a lecture, and I'm like, "You wanted to take data, just take your data and leave." So yeah, those were some of the challenges we faced, but we hope 2029 will be better.
Yeah, that is not ideal
actually,
data gathering.
Yeah, actually, to complement on that, actually, we have a problem with the registration of the association. One of the officers in that office, when we went there as officials, he wanted to post our registration process of an atheist society and try and see if he can convert us, he can preach to us. And mind you, this is a public office. Actually, it's one of the complaints we are taking to the ombudsman's office. And you think it's a joke until you experience it, and this someone is serious that they can somehow preach to you and know and save you from quote unquote going to hell. And you can see that's the kind of pressure that we we go around here, and also more so when it comes to people in power or from close relative members. Like for me, I had a problem with maybe my mom, my dad. They wanted to push me into this. I was not comfortable. They would. I'm lucky my parents are religious, but they're also good people. But I know people who their parents have like quote unquote disowned them, moved them aside. Yeah. So for like me, I told my mom just pray for me, and I think she didn't have a comeback for that. God has a plan why He created me and this. So there wasn't much pushing back. But for other people, actually in our association, We are 467. More than half of those cannot appear on our video. Actually, almost 300. They cannot appear on our video on our channel. They cannot be taken photo in our Hangouts because they will be reprimanded by their employers, or some people at work. If they're students, their school fees might be cut off. So yeah, those are the challenges that we are trying to, and it's even worse here with ex-Muslims actually, where they face real threats of physical harm. But we're trying our best. Yeah, we're doing our best.
I think that's a key point, is that a secular society, not one where religion isn't allowed, but one where one's religious status isn't essential for being a citizen in that society, is good for everybody. It protects minorities of all stripes, right? Because if the majority can come down on you being an atheist, and they can come down on somebody else, and they can even come down on someone who occupies a minority position within that religion. Jehovah's Witnesses are probably a bad example because of they're problematic for other reasons. But, if you want to know why the First Church of Memphis is wrong, go to the Second Church of Memphis. And if you live in a secular society, then you can believe whatever you want as long as you're not harming other people. And that's good for everybody. Right. So, guys, love the work you're doing. I have to say that I really admire the effort and the courage that you show, because being an atheist in America is, it's not that I never experienced any kind of negative consequences ever, but nobody cares. I live in a pretty liberal city. Nobody cares that I'm an atheist most of the time. It's pretty rare that I run into any kind of problems. I probably can't get elected as an atheist, but aside from running for office, it's not going to be a barrier to me. So it's kind of a low risk thing here. Yeah. But that is not true everywhere. So the links to your various channels are in the description. Please go over there and check them out and show them some love so they can get their message out. You know how the algorithm works. Anyway, do that. Hopefully we can have you guys on again in the future. But until next time, remember, you've always got reason to doubt. And since Jared's not here to say it, peace out.
Thank you very much. Cheers.